stop. You haven't subscribed to the channel yet? Subscribe now. We have new stories every day. Now, let's go. My name is Carl Thompson, a 62-year-old retired engineer living in the peaceful suburbs of Portland, Oregon. I've been married to my wife, Linda, for over 30 years. Our life together has been a tapestry of shared dreams, occasional quarrels, and heartfelt reconciliations. We have three wonderful children. Our daughters, Emily and Sarah, are both married and thriving, while our son, Michael, has embarked on an international career and now lives in Tokyo. Our home is a cozy two-story house with a wraparound porch and a garden that Linda tends to with meticulous care. It's the kind of place where neighbors wave from their yards and the mailman knows you by name. About 5 years ago, I began to notice a shift in the atmosphere at home. Linda grew increasingly distant, casting suspicious glances my way and making offhand comments that hinted at deeper concerns. One evening, as I settled into my favorite armchair with a book, Linda stood by the window, arms crossed. "You've been coming home late quite a bit," she remarked, her gaze fixed outside. I looked up, surprised. "Late? You know I've been visiting Emily and helping with the grandkids. Their hands are full with the new baby." She turned to face me, a hint of skepticism in her eyes. "Every night this week?" "Well, not every night," I replied, chuckling softly. "And when I'm not there, I'm at the community center, volunteering. You know that." She sighed, sitting down across from me. "It just feels like you're always somewhere else. We never do anything together anymore." I closed my book, sensing the gravity in her tone. "Linda, if you want us to spend more time together, all we have to do is say the word. How about a weekend getaway?" She waved her hand dismissively. "It's not about a weekend trip, Carl. It's about trust." "Trust?" I echoed, taken aback. "What are you implying?" She hesitated before responding. I can't shake the feeling that there's someone else." I laughed, expecting her to join in, but her expression remained stern. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." "Linda, that's ridiculous. I've never been unfaithful to you." She looked down at her hands. "Maybe I'm just being paranoid." I wanted to reach out and comfort her, but something held me back. This wasn't the first time she'd made such accusations, and they were beginning to wear on me. Over the next few weeks, her suspicions didn't wane. She questioned my every move, checked my phone when she thought I wasn't looking, and grew colder in our interactions. One afternoon, I confided in my friend and neighbor, George. "She's convinced I'm having an affair," I lamented as we sat on his porch, sipping iced tea. George raised an eyebrow. "You, the guy who thinks staying up past 10 p.m. is a wild night?" I chuckled. "Exactly. I don't know what's gotten into her." "Maybe she's projecting," he suggested. "Projecting?" He leaned forward. "Sometimes when people are guilty of something themselves, they project their guilt onto others." I mulled over his words. Could that be it? Was Linda hiding something from me? Determined to find out, I devised a plan. On the eve of our 35th wedding anniversary, I arranged a romantic dinner at home. Candlelight flickered on the dining table, casting a warm glow over Linda's favorite dishes. "This is lovely," she admitted, a genuine smile gracing her face for the first time in weeks. "Only the best for you," I replied, pouring her a generous glass of Chardonnay. As the evening progressed, I kept her glass filled, hoping the bit of wine might loosen her tongue. "Remember our trip to Napa Valley?" I asked. She laughed lightly. "How could I forget? You tried to convince the vintner you could taste hints of blackberry in a Chardonnay." I feigned offense. I stand by that claim. We shared a laugh, and for a moment it felt like old times. Then I steered the conversation gently. "You know, trust is such a vital part of our relationship." Her smile faded slightly. "It is." I took a deep breath. "Linda, I need to tell you something. I know about the affair." Her eyes widened, the color draining from her face. "What are you talking about?" "I've known for a while," I continued, maintaining a calm demeanor. "Someone told me, but I didn't want to believe it." She set her fork down, her hands trembling slightly. "Who told you?" "Does it matter?" I shrugged. "I just want the truth from you." She looked away, tears welling up in her eyes. "Carl, Please, just be honest with me. She took a shaky breath. It was only once, 15 years ago. My heart clenched, but I kept my composure. Tell me about it. She wiped a tear from her cheek. It was Sharon's birthday. We'd all went out to that new bar downtown. I'd had too much to drink. There was this man. We started talking, and one thing led to another. You went to a hotel with him. She nodded silently. I swallowed hard, the weight of her confession pressing down on me. Why didn't you tell me? She met my gaze, eyes pleading. I was ashamed. It meant nothing. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I didn't want to hurt you. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. All these years. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I carried this guilt for so long. Is that why you've been accusing me? Because of your own guilt? She looked down. I suppose so. I couldn't understand how you could be so perfect, so I projected my flaws onto you. I stood up, needing space. I need some air. Walking out onto the porch, I felt a whirlwind of emotions, betrayal, anger, sadness. The cool night air did little to calm my racing thoughts. After a few minutes, Linda joined me outside, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. Carl, please talk to me. I remained silent, staring out into the darkened street. She placed a hand on my arm. I love you. I've always loved you. I pulled away gently. I don't know how to process this right now. Maybe we should see a counselor, she suggested hopefully. I shook my head. I need time to think. The days that followed were strained. I couldn't look at her without picturing her with someone else. The betrayal consumed me, and I found solace at the bottom of a whiskey bottle more often than I'd like to admit. One afternoon, Emily called. Dad, you don't sound like yourself. Is everything okay? I forced a cheerful tone. Just a bit under the weather, sweetheart. Are you sure? You know you can talk to me. I hesitated. It's nothing to worry about. Well, if you need anything, I'm here. Thank you, I said softly. How are the kids? She launched into a story about my grandson's latest antics, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of joy. After hanging up, I realized I couldn't keep this carried up forever. I needed to make a decision. That evening, I sat down with Linda. We need to talk, I began. She looked apprehensive. All right. I've been thinking a lot about us, about what you told me. And I don't know if I can move past this. Tears filled her eyes. Please, Carl, don't say that. I've lost trust in you. Every time I look at you, I'm reminded of your betrayal. It was so long ago, she pleaded. We've built a life together since then. I sighed heavily. I wish I didn't know. Maybe then we could have continued as we were. But now, is there anything I can do? She asked desperately. I think we need some time apart. She covered her mouth, stifling a sob. You're leaving me? Just for a while. I need to clear my head. I packed a small bag and headed to a motel on the outskirts of town. The room was sparse, but it offered the solitude I craved. Over the next few weeks, I grappled with my emotions. I visited Michael in Tokyo, hoping distance would provide clarity. We spent days exploring the city, and though I didn't share the reason for my visit, he seemed to sense something was amiss. Dad, is everything okay back home? He asked over dinner one night. I offered a weak smile, just needed a change of scenery. He nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes a change is good. Returning home, I felt slightly more grounded. Linda and I met at a coffee shop to talk. You look well, she commented nervously. Japan agrees with me, I replied. Have you given any thought to us? I took a sip of my coffee. I have. I think we should try counseling. Her face lit up with hope. I'd like that. But I added, I can't make any promises. I understand, she said softly. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. We began attending weekly sessions with Dr. Reynolds, a kindly woman with a knack for asking the tough questions. Trust is like a vase, she explained during one session. Once broken, it can be repaired, but it will never be the same. Linda reached for my hand. I want to try to mend it, cracks and all. I looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. So do I. It wasn't easy. There were days when the pain felt fresh, and others when we found ourselves laughing together like old times. One afternoon, while gardening, Linda turned to me. "Remember when we planted that oak sapling?" I smiled. "It's not much of a sapling anymore." She nodded toward the towering tree. "It grew strong despite the storms." "Are we still talking about the tree?" I teased. She chuckled. "Maybe." As the months passed, we slowly rebuilt our relationship. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, I said, "I'm glad we didn't give up." She rested her head on my shoulder. "Me too. Do you think we'll ever fully move past it?" I asked. "Perhaps not completely," she admitted, "but maybe that's okay. It's a part of our story now." I took her hand. "Here's to writing the next chapter together." She raised an imaginary glass. "Cheers to that." In the end, I realized that while I wished I hadn't learned about her past infidelity, it forced us to confront issues we'd long ignored. We emerged on the other side more honest and connected than before. Life isn't always tidy, and relationships aren't without their flaws. But with effort, understanding, and a bit of humor, we found our way back to each other. End of story.